Welcome to Commander Community, the show where we discuss everything, the people, the places, and the things beyond the tabletop of Magic the Gathering's most popular format, brought to you by Star City Games.
I'm Anthony Alongi.
And I'm Sheldon Menery. In each episode, we'll address one or more hot-button issues in the Commander community. We'll talk about Commander's current events and the intersection of our hobby with life in general, whether that's food, booze, nerd culture, really anything at all is on the table for being off the table.
And I am on the table, 100% likely to ask Sheldon, what the hell is wrong with you? On the table, off the table, near the table, above the table, below the table.
Life's eternal questions. So in this episode, we're going to talk about some community best practices. We're going to, we spend most of our time playing Commander in small communities, the local environments we've carved out, whether that's our sort of group of friends that we regularly get with at our houses or other people's houses, or our small groups at the LGS. We're going to try to talk about the ways that we like to help make those groups more enjoyable.
Right. So what's your local group like nowadays, Sheldon? We have quarantining, right?
Right. My local group has basically become the RC and the regular guests that we have on the stream, because that's the Magic I'm playing. Before that, it was my Monday Night Gamers. There certainly are stark differences between the two. But before we talk about that, let's talk about your pre-COVID environment.
Sure. So my back in 1998 is when I started playing Magic. And I actually started it. My hope for my local group would have been myself and my wife, because you saw a Magic the Gathering commercial. Back then, we used the TV, as it were. No Netflix, kids.
Right.
And there was a commercial on for Magic the Gathering. It was one of the few times they've advertised on that particular thing. Around the time of Mirage, Tempest, Portal.
So for those of you who are a little young, a television is basically a monitor that you don't have hooked up to a computer.
It's usually a little bit bigger.
And things magically appeared in it off of the airwaves. But go ahead.
Oh, the tubes we had before the internet tubes.
Right.
So I got it for her. I actually got Magic for my wife for a birthday present. That was, and she was like, "Yeah, I have no interest in this." And I said, "But you said you were interested, like in November when you saw that on the TV." And I thought you'd be kind of. She's like, "No." She's like, "No, not interested." What else you got under the tree? So which, fortunately, I had many other Christmas presents for her, so I survived that Christmas. But then I was looking around for a group, and it started with my brother-in-law. Ended up my wife's sister's husband, Paul, and I pulled together the group, and ever since then we've had a Thursday night group that has met, with very, very few exceptions. We've met every Thursday, and this COVID-19 environment is one of the exceptions. We have not met as a full group for a very long time. We've had some get-togethers. My son is my second group, and he has a couple of friends who, even through the COVID, they followed similar practices, and so we have a very small group that occasionally gets together under pretty severe precautions and protocols, and
sure,
we can pull together for that. And then the local store, which started Level Up Games in Hastings, which started just a year and a half ago, they're going okay. They have a coffee shop that's still doing all right, so that business isn't going anywhere. But boy, I was getting really bummed out in April, because I was like, God, these people just got started about a year ago, and it's a great local scene, and it's 2 blocks away. I walk there, and it's so nice to go to a gaming store. And I miss that environment. They don't have the game. They're open for purchasing of games inside. The coffee shop is open, but they don't have the tables for gaming. Of course, they're very careful about that.
So
that's my three-headed threat right there.
Yeah, right. So your regular Thursday group is probably older than a lot of the local groups that people are playing in, which tells
probably older than some of the players.
Right. Yes, your Thursday night group is old enough to drink.
Yeah, it is.
So that means that tells me you've probably developed habits, rituals and
Yes.
things that you commonly go to. There's a reason that your group still gets together after 20 plus years. What is it that you're doing to keep the group cohesive? Because I gotta suspect that it's more than just playing the game.
It is. It's a group of great. It's a group of great guys. There've been multiple genders and gender identities in the group, mostly guys. So I'm going to use the shorthand guys. It's great guys. Family connections, to be sure. First, it was old college friends and high school friends of my wife and others that I had met in Minnesota through her. And then over time, as I got my own name out there, I actually had some people that would email me and say, "Hey, I live in Minnesota. Can I join your group?"
Mm-hmm.
And so it really was this interesting mix of tight friends for decades, childhood friends of my wife's, of our families, and then a brand new person. How do we make it work? The big part of what we would do is we would share hosting duties, and each person would share. We don't go to a local gaming store.
Mm-hmm.
We're spread across the Twin Cities, so there's no one store that would work. And we also go until quite late, and so it has to be a regular hosting. So part one of our particular culture is you rotate the hosting, and you have responsibility for pitching in, and so it just creates a good feel for it. And it also filters the folks who would just email me out of nowhere. It's like, you're going to have to open your home up, and we got to trust you to open our home up to you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some protocols have to do with just, we talked about the social contract in a few episodes ago. The first thing we do is we embed a social contract that's truly social, that's truly about, we have to trust you as a friend because you are going to become a friend to us. Mm-hmm. That's a big part of it. You're responsible for the meals when you host. You're responsible for just making sure that things, the look and feel of the place. Some local groups I know do this as well. A lot of local groups do this, but some local groups do the game store, and we're the home based sort, right? Our Thursday group. And we have, so then layered on top of that is sort of how we operate and the formats we use. And we take a lot of pride in trying to diversify our format. And for a while, we played something called Emperor Draft, which I don't even think is a thing to a lot of folks anymore. We don't do it as much anymore. But what we thought we would try at one point is to try to mix the draft and the Emperor format. And so we used to do that for a long time. It became kind of emblematic of our group, is you had to get good at Emperor Draft.
Now, how big is your extended group? How big is this extended group?
It has a total number of standing number of somewhere between 15 and 17, and on any given night, anywhere from 6 to 10 will show.
Wow.
And for a while there, we had some people move off to San Francisco, move out of town, San Francisco and elsewhere. For a while there, we regularly had 10 to 12, and we could actually have 2 games going at the same time. And that was kind of a fun. We never tried to do, we tried occasionally. We would do a big 9-player or 10-player game. Those are not super satisfying.
No.
And we would do it just to say we did it. But usually we would split into a group of 6, group of 4, group of 4, group of 4, group of 6, group of 6. If it got that big. Lately, though, it's been more on the anywhere from 4 to 8. And then, so I'd say pre-COVID, we had 6 pretty regularly.
Now, you, of course, only played Magic during these times.
Yes, we would set up specific separate days. There's a Thursday night group, and then on Saturdays, like one Saturday a month, we would pull together, and it was any game but Magic.
Oh.
And so we would play like Settlers of Catan, or we'd play Scythe, or whatever other games. We haven't gotten to Terraforming Mars yet. We will try, I'm sure.
Gotta get there, Anthony.
I know.
It's the best.
I want you to play Scythe too. You mean, this is a give and take, Sheldon.
Yeah.
It's not just about all of us terraforming Mars.
I just played online with Scott and Keith Bogart, one of my Monday Night Gamers, and Gretchen and I played a Terraforming Mars online, and the game works. Obviously, it doesn't have the expansions and stuff, but it's cool. Yeah. So when did your group adopt Commander?
Shortly after you corrupted Wizards to produce their own decks. I'm picking up on some of the internet chatter lately. I'm just teasing. So was it 2013 was when the first Commander decks came out? Mimeoplasm and Kalia and Gaven. Therefore, I think it was shortly after those decks came out because those of us that had started, I think maybe I had one deck that I was starting to think of building with an old dragon legend back then, like Rith or something. And then those decks came out, and then a bunch of us bought them, and now we wanted to try them, right? So I think we were in that. That's when we started to do it more. And so what we would do is we would come in, and then whoever's there first, you trickle into somebody's house, and you're playing Commander. And then once enough people are there, we would do the Emperor draft. I do want to talk about that someday. It doesn't have to be today. About Emperor draft, and then we would, if somebody had to leave early, then we'd kick back into Commander. And that became kind of that was the default setting for a while. That would be the normal thing we would do for a while. We would test out other formats from time to time, but that became a bit of a routine for us.
Okay, pick one of your Emperor draft. You have Alexander or Constantine.
Alexander or Constantine?
Yeah.
I'm not catching the reference. I'm sorry.
Yeah, great emperors from the past.
Oh, okay. So not a card.
Yeah,
Just
yes, actual history, Anthony.
Seamless. Yeah. All right. It's Alexander.
Macedonians every time.
Yeah. No, I just think that they, that's just kind of what you want. They had all those islands to manage. I just sort of feel like they could handle anything.
Yeah, and they didn't need to ban islands either, so.
No, they don't need to ban this. Exactly. They use islands. Right? So that makes sense.
Islands also the strongest thing in conquest of the globe.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'll tell you though, on Civ 6, I play a lot of Civ 6, and I'll tell you, I really don't like playing Macedonia. It's one of those things where all the good stuff comes early, and if you don't crush a bunch of civilizations early, you're just in for 800 years of pain.
Otherwise known as world history, right? But yeah, let's circle back around to your Thursday night group. And you said the host is responsible for food. Now, are we talking about providing dinner for everybody, or or snacks?
You are handling dinner, so you can do takeout if you want to. You can cook something, and we have a mix. Different guys. We'll try different things and such, and that's kind of fun to do. We have we're going to talk later about somebody who I think does an amazing job, as she's presented in her article. But we don't go to those lengths. But I am really impressed by what our group, the variety of stuff that we would do. And so there's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of, you could find somebody grilling. You could find somebody who's just I didn't have time. Here's some green mill pizza, kind of stuff going on. So that's kind of where we are there. We're also responsible for making sure, obviously, that there's enough room for how many people come. We have there's a Google Doc that we use where we do the RSVP. We have a certain culture, you tell the host that you're going to be there so that they know. You don't just, whoever shows up kind of thing. It's an actual, you sign up to host, and then people actually sign up and tell you they're going to be there.
There are plans.
Very adult. Yeah.
Plans.
It's very adult. It's like a weekly dinner party, Sheldon, with Magic. Maybe not as elegant as your dinner parties are, but still pretty elegant.
Yeah, but we don't play any Magic at those, so.
That's true. So there's your drawback. Why don't you? What the hell is wrong? Wait a second. So I just assumed that at least one dinner party you've played Magic, but okay.
Once, that wasn't really a dinner party.
Yeah.
BDM was in town, and we had some friends over and cooked, and then the friends left. Some of the friends left, and the Magic playing friends who stayed played Magic. But
right. Good.
Yeah, but our monthly dinner gang are all not Magic players. In fact,
so after your good friends left and all you were left with was BDM, then you played Magic. Got it.
Exactly. So does your Thursday night group have any particular rituals or things habits that you've developed over the years?
We have a lot of quirky sayings, inside jokes, stuff, voices that we use, things that have come up when we've gotten really punchy that have just carried on from time to time. A lot of it would play as inside jokes, maybe wouldn't be terrific for the purposes here. But I will say that there are definitely temperaments that we play into. There's people who have become the hothead over time, or the person who's always going to attack, or the person who's never going to attack, no matter what kind of deck they've got. You got your red-black deck. Why you have a Jund deck? Why are you holding back? It's always a little bit of an interesting. So you see the personalities play out. So definitely, I would say that there are roles that we play comfortably with each other, and that helps the social. It's a little bit of social oil, so that people get a little upset with each other. It's like, oh, there's Anthony. He's just being the big loudmouth that he is, kind of thing, and it kind of helps out. In terms of the games that we play, I'd say it's more the rhythm of the format, and I'd say that over time we have certainly cards like the Armageddon, land destruction. You and I've talked about this when we get to like the level of cards, the type of game experience. The Rule Zero certainly has become rule, don't even worry about it, because it's just, you just know, right? And it makes it hard for some players to break into our group. We've had some newer players who I think have come maybe once or twice, and then I asked them, why don't you want to show up? It's like really great group of guys, but you guys seem to have your own rhythm. So I think there's some subconscious rhythms that we have that I may not even be aware of.
So you don't have a Rule Zero or a pregame conversation, what kind of decks are we playing tonight? It's just your normal thing is what you do.
They're all tuned to each other, and there's almost a meta game to it for that group. What I found when I took these decks and I moved them into the local store, or when I play against my son, we have to have a very different kind of conversation. And this might be a good segue about like my son is my ritual is actually more pronounced. We have levels of decks that we have said, so that when we play in the same game, he can look at me and say, I'm going level 4. What are you doing? Okay. Right. And I go, I'm level 3, level 5, whatever. And like, if they're within one level of each other, it's okay. But if I say I'm going level 1, he goes, I'm going with level 5 deck. I'm like, what are you doing? Yeah. What's your point? What are you doing here? And even if other people are in the group, so if he joins our Thursday night group, which he's sometimes done, he and I have a ritual. I'll just look at him and say 3, 4, and he'd be like, nah, 2, 1. I have a new deck, right? And I'll be like, okay, fine. So at least one of us in the group, the rest of them know kind of what that is, but we don't expect them. They don't have to worry about it if they don't want to. As long as 2 of us are at least on the same page, we're fine, and it works okay. So it's kind of a weird hybrid ritual. So of all the rituals I have in the group, the ritual that probably is the most ritualistic is the one I have with my son, which is the quick conversation. We've reduced it to a number. Now we have 5 levels of decks. We've tested them in duels with each other. We've set them. We've level set them. All the dozens of decks that I have, the 2 dozen that he's got, they're all level set against each other, so that we know when we go into a game, we know exactly what we're doing.
So you've created the shorthand by which that you then communicate the thing.
And stay in the same family together without disowning each other? Yes.
Right.
Helps.
How broad is the spectrum of the play level of the group? I mean, I figure after this time, especially with your core group, you've sort of come toward the middle with each other.
Yeah, they're all pretty good. A couple of them have qualified for the Pro Tour once, like anytime in the last 20 years. A couple of them have gotten very good on Arena. I don't play on Arena, but a couple of them play religiously on Arena and are very good and make whatever mythic or whatever. I don't know all the stuff, but I mean, it's
the ranks.
They get the medals and awards and and they do the thing. So that's nice to have them in the group, because they kind of pull the rest of us. But the play level of the group's pretty high. But we have no trouble playing very casual. We have a lot of players that have a lot of very janky decks, and we do. One of the reasons why I believe the spectrum of like levels of commander decks is not as important as your intent,
right? Is
because I'm used to there are times we get pretty intent with each other, and there are times we don't, and you just kind of you get the sense in the flow over time of if everybody just played the really intense deck. We almost don't say anything. Some people just say, I'm just going to change speed. And that's maybe our shorthand for, I'm not playing my send triplets deck next game, or I'm not playing my, whatever has blue in it deck, in the next, or I'm not playing my green blue deck next time. And the next deck that comes out is going to be a little more relaxed.
So
it creates this rhythm of play.
So it sounds like, even though you've been together way longer than most groups, it sounds like you're a sort of relatively common group. Like there's not anything highly unusual about this gang of 16 to 20 that gets together.
It plays very comfortably. When we go to a local Grand Prix, we fit in individually or in pairs or anything. We fit in very well with whatever play styles are out there. We can adjust pretty well. Even CEDH players don't throw us off that much. If we're one of four and three other players are CEDH, we're not going to be competitive at all.
Right.
But if there's one CEDH play at the table, we've rule zeroed it out. We all know that player is doing what they're doing, and everybody's okay with it. We're going to have a good game of Magic. We're not going to surprise anybody. We're going to get along with. We don't need to, knock on the deck 3 times and rub our bellies in any sort of weird ritual to get along with each other. We have rules about, food in the table and stuff like that. Sure. And we also have, I'd say, the last thing I want to say about rituals for my Thursday night group is we've kind of taken to, I've thought about instituting a rule where like no distractions, because we've gotten some laptops and phones at the table sometimes where people in the middle of the game will be kind of on a thing elsewhere. And I've thought about setting up a rule where we don't do that. I was thinking about that before COVID-19 hit, and then it hit. But it was mostly, it's like if the player's out of the game, of course they can do whatever the heck they want. Sure,
but if they're surfing the internet when it's supposed to be their turn.
Yeah, if you're there, you're there, right? I feel like we've started to take that for granted. If I were to make one criticism of my group. If they're all in this group, it's okay. I haven't articulated this to them, so I'm telling everybody before I tell them. Sorry, guys. But I've thought about, like, especially now that I miss that group so much. That's like taking it for granted when we're together. We really should be together. And I agree. So I've thought about that particular ritual or lack of ritual that we ought to have, or that little rule, unexpressed rule that we ought to maybe have and maybe express.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I want to do, because even pre-COVID, because we get together less in the 21st century than I think we used to, that when we do, I want everybody invested. Right. So if we, you mentioned our dinner gang, we put our phones away, right? But we sit down at the table and we talk about each other's dishes and talk about the food experience or whatever else is going on in our lives. But we stay connected with the people that we've come to connect with, and I think that that's super important. And now, even more so probably, because we're not connecting physically with as many people as we used to. So when we do, I really, really want to pay attention to them. Yeah, I agree. So that's something. So those are my in-person groups. The local store I can talk about maybe after you talk a little bit more about your, let's talk about your group and the group that you kind of quote unquote grown up with. And stuff. Tell us about that. Like I said at the top, I have basically 2 distinct experiences pre and post COVID-19. Beforehand, it was my Monday Night Gamers, even though it may not have been Monday night that we met on. And it was a regular group that were my RPG group. And we also occasionally played Magic on other nights. Then we started, investment in a long RPG campaign can be problematic when people can't show up all the time. So playing Commander on game night means that it doesn't matter if one of the players doesn't show up, you still have a game.
Right. But get your backup.
Yeah. So for the Commander group of Monday Night Gamers, it really became about the gathering. They're probably in a 4 or 4.5 hour evening from the time people showed up at 6 or 6:30 until we broke up at 10:30 or 11. We maybe played Magic for about 2 hours, and the rest of it was about being together. I would always cook. I would as people trickled in, I'd have a bottle of wine open, or I'd make some cocktails or whatever as I was finishing up cooking, and we'd just chat. And then we'd sit down to a meal, whether it was something simple, potato cheese soup, homemade potato cheese soup in bread bowls was a thing,
Right.
and highfalutin food was a thing. Just it sort of depended on my mood in what I felt like, how much time I felt like investing in the cooking. And sometimes Gretchen was good enough. She's like, I feel like cooking something for you guys this week. And we would do that. But we would kind of have to keep a clock on things so we didn't drift off into just hanging around together. Like, oh yeah, we're gonna
hanging around with your friends. I mean, God,
Right.
that's a wasted evening. Yeah.
So we would sometimes set an alarm so that we wouldn't go past 8 o'clock while we were eating,
Yeah.
because we didn't want the games to get too far into the night. And it was always more about getting together and having great games of Commander, but those games were the excuse for us getting together. Frequently, dessert was the between game 1 and game 2 thing. Again, Gretchen is the dessert maker, is the baker between the two of us. So she's like, "What do you want me to make for dessert this week?" And my response is, "Well, we don't really need dessert."
Right.
And everybody else is like, shut up.
We need dessert.
The hell's wrong with you?
Sheldon, what the hell is wrong with you? And, in chorus.
Right.
Yeah.
So we would just explore our friendship with again, Commander as an excuse. Now, once we get down to the games, of course, we dive in. There's no distraction from that point. It's like, all right, we're playing Commander, and sort of like you, we'd already worked out our power level. We already worked out the kinds of decks that we want to play, or the kinds of decks that we didn't want to play. Certainly, there were times when we would do a league to keep things fresh, like we did one of our rotisserie drafts, or we would crack open the new Commander set, and we would pass them out, and then slowly modify decks from there. But for the most part, there was already an established power level, so we would just roll right into our games, and if something crazy happened, which of course it does in Commander, then it happened. But there was nobody going off too soon, because part of it was we're there to sort of luxuriate in each other's company. So you don't really want the game to end too soon. You want the game to take a while so that you can continue hanging out with your friends.
Yeah.
Now,
It's interesting. So are you saying that I obviously understand it's not absolute, but when you play a game of Magic, in most of the discussions about Magic and most of the non-Magic topics were before then, before you sat down?
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, there's a sort of I get that's not perfect line, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, pretty much. And it wasn't anything, it wasn't an intentional separation, but it was sort of the habit of how it came together.
And if you have a dedicated time before you play where you're doing that, it's going to be a subconscious tendency to just go to the game when there's a game on. And because when the first person shows up on a Thursday night in our group, that person sits down and starts doing a duel with whoever's the host is, right? Like, and it's just, okay, let's just go. And then a third player shows up, and then if you're at a close place, you end the game, or if you don't, whatever, you get the third person wrapped in, and then as soon as the fourth player shows up, you might, hurry up that game, or get the so it's always magic when for the moment that first guest shows up. So that means for us, now that I think about it, like, we talk about anything, anytime. And again, I get that these are not strict rules,
not hard absolutes, right?
Kind of the culture of the group is just that, like, our conversations go everywhere, and have less structure than I think that you've got an interesting sort of more structured evening that has led to certain habits, conversational habits that, would look and feel different if I showed up, let's say unannounced tomorrow.
Right. If you show up unannounced tomorrow, as long as you have a mask on, you're fine.
Yeah, that's. I think to get there is probably more trouble. all those maps of the United States of all the states that are shutting out other states now, or
Right.
the self-quarantine or whatever you're doing. It's like, wow,
Right.
a lot going on. I don't know if Florida has any standards right now. If any, maybe Florida is dark on everybody else's map.
Yeah. But Florida's like, oh, come on down, it's fine.
Come on down, Disney World's open.
Right. So my pre-COVID Monday Night Gamers stand in stark contrast to my regular Commander group now, which is the RC, the rest of the RC, when we stream together, both Thursday nights and now on Sunday afternoons, which you'll be a part of shortly after we record this.
Yes.
So that's with people that we've known for a long, long time, and like your group, we've already settled into everything, right? We already socialize at other times. This block is now for playing the Magic.
Yeah.
So once we're into the stream, I mean, we'll BS about this, that, and the other, or especially if there's a guest, we'll maybe be talking about some of the things that they're doing. But for the most part, it's now laser focused on here we are to play Magic. Of course, it's goofy Commander. It's sometimes just wild, but it's about, again, getting in the same spot to do something that you enjoy together, as opposed to just hanging out. We hang out enough otherwise, even in these times. The RC communicates on a daily basis. So when it comes time to stream, it's just time to stream.
Right. Yeah. It makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
So,
but there is
other cultural notes from your play experiences. People want to know you, Sheldon. People want to get to know you.
Well, one of the things that's has become a question on the stream is, at least for the Thursday nights, we haven't gotten there on Sunday afternoons yet, is what are we all drinking? Now, now famously, Toby doesn't drink alcohol. As a matter of fact, Toby barely drinks anything besides water, which is really weird because Toby is a foodie and has a pretty highly developed palate. He just says he's never had alcohol that didn't pretty much taste like gasoline to him. So he doesn't drink anything. And then Gavin and Scott are out on the West Coast. So even if we start at 8 o'clock Eastern, when it's fully time for me to maybe have something to drink, maybe they haven't started yet.
Right.
But but the stream now has started asking, okay, what are you drinking tonight? And I'll show my old fashioned or the bottle of whatever it is that I'm having on that evening. And then sometime in the first game, Gavin will generally share something, all right, it's about time for me to have something. So one of the other habits that's developed there is that, again, since Gavin is on the West Coast and playing basically through his dinner time, Sarah, his wife, is a very, very good cook and also a baker. So now it's, and she'll intentionally slide the plate under the camera as she passes it to him. So
you can see Gavin kind of go,
so the game is what goodies is Gavin eating tonight? So all these things sort of bring in the culture that we want to our game, that wrap around to the culture. But I think we've talked enough about the two of us.
Yeah,
I think we should talk about some other people.
Yeah, no. For future discussion, I'd love to talk more about the local gaming group down a level up. But I think that's just something that is a lot like other people's experiences. I just love those guys, and so just want to give a quick shout out to them. They're wonderful, and we just want to make sure we have time in the B block, so to speak, to discuss some other folks as well. So before we go on to that though, should we talk a little bit about the community contributor of the week?
Let's go.
All right, so folks, Magic the Gathering is about the gathering. here on Commander Community, we like to recognize those who go above and beyond in making the gathering worth it.
Our community contributor of the week is Thomas Quinlan, otherwise known as Hobbs Q online, and he mostly sticks to Twitter. Hobbs was an early adopter of the format and has been a big Commander fan since 2009, since even before there were precons. He's the host of the Goblin Lore podcast, but more than that, he's a clinical psychologist who combines his love of magic with his love of helping people with their mental health. So his main focus is bringing awareness to fighting the stigma of needing help in the first place. And one of the ways he's done so is sharing his own journey with mental health difficulties, both on the podcast and when he visits other people's streams.
Yeah, and he also talks about it. What I know him mostly through Twitter. But the neat thing about him is like he doesn't do this every day, but every once in a while he'll ask that question of, hey, Twitter community, how are we doing? Hey, Magic the Gathering community, how are we doing? And he's not asking because he just wants fine, or good, or pretty bad, or or weird cat face meme. He wants to know, and he uses that to normalize the asking of each other in a community among people who don't necessarily know each other as well. It's okay to talk a little bit about if you're having a rough week, if you're having a rough month or year, if you're having a really good day and you're really proud of yourself because you did something for yourself or did some self-care you're really proud of. And so he hopes to, I'm reading a little bit into it, but I can tell from the flow of his conversations, I believe that he's hoping to inspire people to talk about themselves, to normalize it, to be okay, to go beyond the fine or not great or, that kind of stuff. That it's okay to say, I'm really struggling today. I feel alone. I feel like I'm not worth anything, or that this whole pandemic thing's beating me down and I've just been depressed, or to go ahead and say, you know what, I did something good for myself today, even though I've had rough times, or even though I've done some things that aren't terrific, I did something good for myself, and that's okay to take care of myself.
Yeah, I think
I love that about him.
Yeah, I think he's doing his part to really put his arms around the community, the extended community, and both ask the question, "Are you all right?" and be there for the answer. If the answer is, "Well, actually, I'm not," how are we going to help? And he's really just been a beacon of light in these relatively dark times. I appreciate the lengths he's gone to subtly, and it's very clear this is about him wanting to help, not about him, look how woke I am. It's really him wanting to help.
Yeah, and he uses that podcast too, doesn't he? Like he uses it to amplify those voices from marginalized communities. Yep. He does collaborations all the time with other creators. It's about this concept of shared space instead of just him. I didn't know his first name was Thomas for like the longest time. Like it was Hobbs Q, right? It's not really about that. And he wasn't trying to do like the name like Madonna or Cher or Hobbs Q, right? Like it was just that happened to be his hand. It happened to be his handle, and it was always about other people.
Right.
And in fact, I used to get him confused with multiple other people in the community because I eventually sorted out the Twitter handle. It says more about me than him, or anybody else. But because he was so low key about it, he's the one that's promoting others. Right. And you see him, if you really pay attention, you got to pay attention though to see him in the background. The only time the only trademark thing he's really got going for his own self is asking others how they are. Yeah. That's really, which is great. It's artful.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks to Hobbs for being our community contributor of the week.
Yeah. So as we said earlier in the show, we talked to the community. We cast our net far and wide. Sheldon put out a call.
Right.
Community assemble, right? And brought them all together. The entire community. Everybody was there. If you weren't there, then you need to get on it so you can join our community. In all seriousness, Sheldon put out a call on social media and asked folks, get some of their input. What about all of you? And what are some of the things that you all do to enhance your environments?
Yeah, we got a fair number of common answers, like the variants that people play, star or multiple bounty options. But those were a little more technical than we were actually looking for. One of the common answers, more along the lines of what we were looking for, are the ways that people made sure that their groups were welcoming to new players.
Yeah, so you could do things like having extra decks around, having boxes of commons or uncommons to give to those players to help them get started. When we get onto my local store, that's kind of stuff I would promote as well too. That's one of the things I really appreciate about that group. But then there were also a number of comments about kind of how to treat new players well. Can we talk a little about that?
Yeah, I think that this is one of the things that that made me really, really happy when I was reading a bunch of these comments. We went to Facebook, we went to Twitter, we went to Reddit, we went to the RC Discord server. So we talked to a fair number of people, and I was really, really pleasantly surprised about making sure that new people were being welcomed into groups. Because, you and I traditionally have seen that Magic can sometimes be a really insular community. And the new people get shut out. In tournament environments, you've really got to prove yourself to get in. And here, there was a lot more open arms. Right.
Agreed. So and some of these people follow particular codes. And I would take the example of Orcish Librarian, right?
Yeah.
Who writes motivational cards and puts them in his own decks. Yeah. So he opens the deck box, he takes out the deck, and there's like an index card or something, roughly that size, that he looks at, and he says, he's written to himself a note. It's not for other people, although, good advice for them too. Right. But it's something for himself to remind himself. And here's what it says. I'm going to read it off. I will treat my fellow planeswalkers with kindness, dignity, and respect. I will be responsible, not just for my own behavior, but for those around me, and for those around me. And if I see someone around me being made uncomfortable, I will help. And if I can't do it myself, I'll get someone who can. And Magic is for everyone. I will live up to that. So you can imagine it's not just about I'm going to behave myself, but it's also I'm going to look out for, people who may look like, they're marginalized or being treated in certain ways. And I'm gonna get myself in there. And he writes this reminder to himself, and he puts that in every deck box. How are you going to play Magic without reminding yourself, right? I mean, it's a kind of a nifty idea.
Yeah, this sort of reaffirmations to yourself of the way you want to act are really powerful things. And it was one of the self-help people. I think it was Stephen Covey, but I could be wrong. But it was about telling yourself the kind of person that you want to be all the time, not just going through life and being, but actively saying, this is the person that I want to be. And when you tell yourself that, then you start to, human beings act in a manner consistent with their self-image. So if you've crafted this stronger self-image, then of course you're going to act that way.
Yeah, I think. Oh, sorry, we had a little bit of an issue here. I do believe that Covey is the one of the sources. I'm sure other people have said it, but Covey is one of the sources for that. And it is amazing. People say, "Well, you just write a thing down. What a big deal." The power of words to inspire, whether it's something we write to ourselves or for other people. If words didn't matter, we wouldn't have books, we wouldn't have podcasts or video casts, we wouldn't have these sorts of shows. We wouldn't have a lot of the things that we have. Words do matter, the words do inspire. And writing words to yourself to remind yourself of who you want to be, that is actually a more powerful tool than a lot of people give them credit for. There are other ideas out there. You want to walk us through one or two of those?
Yeah, well, I liked one, Sasha Rowley, who's Baron Ninja on Twitter, also has a sort of written thing to remind people in the group, and it's about addressing the personalities of the group, and it's about some of the people in their group have some disabilities, so they talk about them up front, especially with the new people. It's like, okay, this person has a hearing difficulty, or this person has a speech impediment, or this person is currently a cancer patient. So they again, they open up their group, and I think that it's addressing what is in front of you and making sure that everybody's on the same page is the way to make a group better, is the way to create linkage instead of separation.
Right. To be thinking about, yes, everything from what people can physically do, dietary preferences. I mean, we are all collections of aspects of ourselves, right? Like we all have these things about us. And if you get to know people well enough and you have a large enough group or a growing enough group, you start to accommodate, and welcome, not just accommodate, but welcome people who may need certain things, from you. If you're going to host in your house or if you're meeting together at a local store, how do you make each other just feel like you're at home? I have paid attention to some of the people in our play group, what they have in their house and how they've set up things, in part to learn what might make them more comfortable in my house. And I think it starts there, right?
Yeah, well, it seems to me that we have a limited amount of leisure time in our life, right?
Right.
And it makes sense to spend that leisure time with people that we appreciate and appreciate the people that we spend the time with.
Right.
So yeah, learning more about them. People that you play Commander with are more than just Magic opponents. Right. They're people. It's a social. It's a format that's designed to be social. So the socializing and being socialized are part of it. Now, a friend of the show, Kia Vess, linked us to 2 articles that she had previously written about making
great articles too. Thank you, Kia.
Yeah, they're both on EDH Rec. If you want to, you can probably follow the responses to my tweet from earlier in the week to find them, or just dig through her past stuff on EDH Rec. And the first one talks about her sharing a love of hobby crafting to bring her home group together, which I thought was pretty cool.
This was actually we're allowed to have favorites. This was actually my favorite of the responses that I received. I'd actually remember that article when she linked to it again. She linked to 2. I hadn't read the other one. I had missed it somehow, but this was the one I remember before, and it really had stuck out in my head because it goes through all of these amazing crafts and things, everything from handcrafted jewelry, and you could be like wearing things or handing things out or just have them as showpieces, wall decor, cooking, all the different things that she does. What a welcoming experience it must be. Whether you've known her for a decade or you're somebody that's a friend of a friend of a friend that's shown up at our house for the first time. Maybe you're a Magic player, maybe you're kind of new to the game, whatever the format. Can you imagine how welcoming it would feel to walk into her space there and have it immediately feel like it's a space where you can just be, right? And that this is what Magic's about. Boy, if I didn't already play Magic, I would want to learn like how to play Magic in that environment. It was kind of a neat, one of the better articles I've read in the last decade, I'd say, on Magic topics. And it had nothing to do with Magic strategy. It was excellent topic introduction and examples that ranged over a whole bunch of different interests. Just a really neat. I really do recommend it to folks that haven't read it yet.
Yeah, the other one was about this kind of cool scavenger hunt she put together for her local group when they went out to an event. So she organized this thing for them to do. Sometimes. Yeah, you mentioned it earlier about, you get your local group and you all go to a convention together and you all end up sitting in the same spot. And part of the idea of going to a convention is to branch out, is to go see other people. So I think this was kind of a compelling way for her to maybe get some of her more introverted friends to matriculate out into the broader community. Right.
The exact format of what she expressed, which was very, she was very meticulous in the details of things you could do. And but I think I don't want to speak to her intent. What I got out of it, what I inferred, was that it kind of doesn't matter what you do for a scavenger hunt. The very idea of a scavenger hunt, and just sort of like, hey guys, let's all go to the Grand Prix and let's all look for each of these different, like, let's do this. And when we all come back to our Thursday night group, maybe we could kind of share our stories, or we kind of share what we did, or over the course of the actual day while we're there, let's pull together and compare what we've seen. It gave me some ideas as to what to do as well, and I enjoyed that article as well.
I want to do the when we can finally go to events together. I want to do like the crap rare hunt where you have you have to spend your time at the con, and obviously you trust everybody to do it there instead of just picking it up online, and then everybody gets to bring one, and you have a contest of who found the crappiest rare. Was Anthony successful in his quest to bring Sorrow's Path into his Thursday night group? Oh, and then you have to play the card, right? Right.
What I thought, one of the things that inspired her article and this discussion inspired me on was the idea of, everybody talks about like overly powered, or how do you set the right level of the commander? I think it'd be really cool to set up an event where you start the morning, everybody pulls together, you discuss the rules, everybody asks questions and such, and you kind of refine what you're going to do. But then essentially everybody goes out over the course of a Grand Prix to different drafts or other limited events where you pick up cards in some sort of random fashion. You're not purchasing cards, you're not coming with a pre-constructed deck. And then at the end of the day, we would all pull together in somebody's hotel room or whatever and play the commander deck that we've built with whatever cards we got from whatever. I guess you'd have to do it with the draft formats to start, right? Like that's your supply, and you pull in. You can register for any kind of drafts you want to, but whatever cards you get, that's your pool. Right. And then you build your deck. You show up at Sheldon's hotel room. You play. There you go.
It's interesting because I was chatting just yesterday with friend of the show Brian David Marshall, and he said I have an idea for a commander league. And of course I said, go on.
Let's hear it.
And the idea is that everyone gets one booster box, one display box. Pick any one you want. Each player picks whatever they want.
Okay.
Crack the packs, and you have to build your commander deck from what's in that box.
Yeah, I would do that in a heartbeat. Absolutely.
Then.
Oh, there's more.
There's more. Well, yeah, you can't. You can't be static.
Now, how much would you pay?
Yeah, right. You then after each game, you get to crack a number of other packs to add them to your pool.
Okay.
But he said 6. I think 3 is probably better. Right. Is a little tighter. But you can't open any packs of a set you've opened before.
Okay.
So you can't just like, I'm gonna draft Kaladesh Invention or a Kaladesh Energy deck because I know that I'm just sticking to this. You have to open other packs. So once you've opened your 3 invasion packs, too bad invasion. It's time to go to plane shift or whatever. Right.
So I would do this, by the way.
Yeah.
This is.
Stay tuned because I think we're going to get some people involved. Your name actually did come up when we were talking about it, and
very kind.
It's a kind of thing that maybe we would do on the RC Sunday afternoon stream.
Sure.
We could use that space. One of the repeated things that came up during our thing is how loose that most groups let each other play. Take these backsies.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Take these backsies is a big thing. And I think, Spike Feeder's Jim has talked about the fact that it doesn't matter at what power level his group is playing, they're still playing casual Magic.
Right.
So
somebody made the comment, the stakes literally could not be lower.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the only thing that's on the line is fun for everybody, right?
Yeah.
So that's where we want to be.
That said, I'll say my group, The Thursday night group. And my son, possibly because of my influence in both cases. The taking back, certainly it's certainly not like a tournament kind of thing.
Sure.
Sort of like, especially if nobody else has acted, then there's lots of flexibility. And there's like, you know what, I don't want to do that. I'd rather do this. And people are like, oh, okay, sure. And if you do it more than 2 or 3 times, people make fun of you. But as long as nobody else has done anything, you have to be a little careful, because if you do something and somebody hasn't countered it, then there's that feeling of, well, now I don't have a counter spell.
Right.
Well, be careful, kind of. So we kind of give like a bit of a verbal warning there. There are times when we do the Emperor draft, because what we do is again, I'm sorry, I apparently I want to talk about Emperor draft.
Yeah, obviously.
But the only thing I'm going to say about it is that we draft the cards, but then we put them all the rares and uncommons go back and we redraft them. So that you don't have people drafting cards just for ownership. You actually have them to build the best possible deck. So it is like, and the team that wins gets the first few picks, right? So it's a little bit like a little tiny bit of money's on the table. And so you kind of have to watch a little bit about that, because then it becomes less, but that's less the commander than it is about the particular format we have. For Commander, I think we do have a much more open, take it back, you jackass, if you must. But it's not as tolerant, I would say, as the local store, and I think not as tolerant as I will admit. I think we're probably less tolerant than many of the people who are on Twitter, I think.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, Commander games can get complicated, and when you're socializing along with playing the game, especially in a situation that we're in now where we're playing over webcam. You can always miss stuff. So when somebody does something that doesn't make sense to me, I'm going to ask, okay, are you aware that that I have Glenelendra Archmage in play?
Right. That makes sense.
Or I'm forever trying to play quickly, so I'll just tap some mana and then do the thing and then pass my turn and then retap my mana the right way. So I need to do this, but instead of spending my time in the tank while it's my turn and everybody's waiting, I'll do the thing and then make sure that I have the stuff to play what's in my hand. And I guess if you're paying attention,
that makes sense.
If you're paying attention, I guess that means I'll tip off what's in my hand. But whatever. Again,
so there's a lot of. It feels like there's a lot of forgiveness there, especially online. I think it makes a lot of sense. I can see that being a thing. I think the guys I played with would go right along with that. How about if we could? Can we switch gears a little bit into sort of like the mood setting? Because we were talking a little bit about Kia and what she does, like physically around the space, the gaming space at her place, But there's also the idea of music, right? Like there was somebody who was Lorenzo Espinoza.
Yep, on Facebook.
I believe on Facebook, talked about playing jazz music to calm the mood.
Yeah, and he said they can't
indulge in the jazz, Sheldon.
Jazz is definitely mood music, and there are times.
Yeah.
There are times that I would put it on the older jazz, like the sort of Beat Generation jazz, I think. Yeah. As opposed to the soft rock jazz of Kenny G and whatever, but I think it's good mood music. And Lorenzo said that they came upon it unintentionally and didn't realize until afterwards what a calming effect it had on their group. I suspect that they were listening to their favorite music when they played normally, which I'm willing to bet was one or another kind of more aggressive music. It was either hip hop or heavy metal or Swedish death metal or
of some sort,
or just just a thing, the music that people love, and they were listening to it because they love it, and then they had this unintended effect. And they're like, well, I really like the idea of what that creates for us.
Right. We had for about 6 months. I forgot about this until this came up. But for about 6 months, my Thursday night group, one of the hosts was connected, and he enjoyed K-pop. I won't name names, and no, it was not me. And so he would have this K-pop stuff playing in the background, and at one point I looked and I said, I can't say his name. He said, "Is this like a joke? Are you trying to
don't help people, right?
Distract us?" with like, these young men, these young women, these, whatever else doing, and they're doing these, they set up these little like soap opera like things, these videos. It was like weird. It was this weird, for me, it was almost like a time warp back to 1980s MTV, but more polished, certainly, and just more surreal, of course, to this American,
Sure.
that this was coming out. And there was this really interesting sort of culture that we had set up at his house for like 3-6 months, and finally at the end of it, somebody's like, "Can we not? When the next time you host, can we just not? Could we not do that?" And so since then, we haven't had that. But it was we would tell a lot of jokes about the things. Oh, look, his shirt came off again. Who would have thought?
Right. So
in the middle of the song that he would lose his shirt for the third or fourth time? Is
there a style of music that we play at the Alongi residence when we're gaming?
Now that I've seen this feedback, I actually think I need to put classical on. But normally I'll just have sort of like I've got sort of like an old rock stuff. It is stuff that I don't normally listen to as much, because it occurs to me upon reading this feedback. I'm like, you know what? Maybe there should be a sort of music that just puts us in a different space, right? Not K-pop. No. There's really nothing. No, if people love K-pop, I'm not looking to yuck your yum. It's cool. It's all right.
Well,
there's definitely they have talent. I get it. So,
I discovered
the idea of it is to do something different.
I discovered that the best music for us, for our group, is the Hans Zimmer Pandora station.
Okay.
So it's basically
Hans Zimmer's brilliant.
Hans Zimmer is brilliant, and then of course the Pandora station is other movie score composers that compose in a similar style.
Yeah.
So
that sounds interesting. I like that idea.
It's really atmospheric the whole time, without being overwhelming, but there's familiarity with it, and of course sometimes it'd be, all right, what's this from again?
Yeah.
Oh, it's Iron Man 1. Oh no, it's from the Avengers. So you have to argue.
Yeah.
So setting our kind of mood, because again, we're going to have epic battles and things, and sometimes those scores swell to a crescendo. Yeah.
It's not unlike my son does this. I know a lot of other game masters do for Dungeons and Dragons and other role-playing RPGs, which is you when they hit a certain scene, you might play a certain kind of music just to get epic, at a certain point, which is also a nice DM to player signal. Hope you still have some spells left, because here it comes, right? Like it's kind of a nice visual auditory cue. But we can do that in Magic as well. We can have that.
Yeah, it's the kind of a cool way to set the mood. Well, we've talked before about the idea that a format created to intentionally bring people together for more than just playing the game will attract the kind of people who want to build communities, both large and small. So really, from both of us, thanks to everybody who goes beyond the tabletop to make Commander a great community.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks to everybody who responded to our call. We really appreciate that, and we really value your feedback. So when you see Sheldon or me put a call out, please do tell us what's on your mind.
What's on your mind? Anthony, I suppose there's still plenty of work to be done, but it's time for us to wrap this episode of Commander Community. If you're watching us on YouTube, please remember to follow, like, subscribe, and ring those bells. We'd hate for you to miss an episode or to miss the eventual answer to Anthony's questions.
Could happen any episode, folks. We could finally find out what the hell is wrong with Sheldon.
You want to tell these folks where they can find you on social media?
Sure. You can find me on Twitter at Anthony A. Alongi. You can also find me on Facebook at Anthony Alongi.
I'm on Twitter and Facebook by my name. That's Sheldon Menery. Please tune into my other show, Command Share, every Thursday here on Star City Games and YouTube as members of the RC co-host, and we talk about the big picture, plus the magic cards. Also on Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern in the U.S., you can catch me and the other members of the RC on the Commander Twitch channel. That's twitch.tv/CommanderRC. Now also coming to you on Sunday afternoons at 2 p.m. In fact, half an hour from the time we record this, one Anthony A. Alongi Someday he'll be Anthony the Alongi. Will appear as one of our guests. Then finally, on Sundays, you can find me right here writing about the best format in Magic history on StarCityGames.com. As always, I'm Sheldon Menery.
And I'm Anthony Alongi. Thank you so much for sharing your community with us.